You had something to figure out. A decision. A problem. Something that needed thinking. And within about 30 seconds, before you'd really sat with it, you opened ChatGPT. Not because you were lazy, because that's just the move now. Something needs thinking, you open the thing that thinks fast. And an answer came back. Useful, structured, confident. So you used it. But here's what got lost in the 30 seconds you skipped. Your brain was about to start something. A direction was forming. Not complete, not certain, but beginning. And the moment ChatGPT answered, that beginning stopped. Not because the answer was wrong, because it arrived before your thinking had time to become anything. Here's why this is hard to notice. The answer is usually good. Not perfect, but good enough that moving forward feels right. And good enough is the problem. Because when the answer is good enough, you don't go back. You don't sit with the question. You don't find out what you would have thought if you'd stayed with it a little longer. You just move on. And that's what makes this different from any other tool you've used. ChatGPT doesn't just answer your questions. It answers them fast enough that the question never fully forms. And a question that never fully forms can't show you very much about how you think. Can't show you where your understanding stops. Can't show you what you actually believed before something more complete arrived. Most people aren't thinking about this when they open it. They're just trying to get something done. And that's exactly when it happens. Not when you're careless, when you're efficient.
Before we begin, if you value quiet, thoughtful content like this, subscribing helps this channel grow and makes it possible to keep creating videos without noise or hype. Thank you for being here. Now, let's begin.
This isn't an argument against using ChatGPT. That's not the point. The point is timing. Because there's a version of using it that doesn't cost you the beginning. The people who get the most from it aren't the ones who ask first. They're the ones who ask second. They sit with the problem long enough to feel where the difficulty is, where they're confused, and what the question is really asking from them. And then they bring it to ChatGPT. And what comes back doesn't replace the beginning. It responds to it. That small shift in sequence, ask second, not first, changes what ChatGPT can do for you. And it changes what you can still do for yourself. Think about the last time you worked through something difficult before you asked anyone. Not because help wasn't available, because you weren't ready to ask yet. You were still inside it, still finding the shape of the problem. And somewhere in that process, before you understood it fully, you started to understand what you didn't understand. Which parts were unclear, which assumptions you were making, where the real difficulty was hiding. That's a specific kind of knowledge, and it only comes from staying inside the confusion long enough to map it. Now think about how often that mapping happens before you open ChatGPT. For most people, the answer is almost never. Not because they can't do it, because ChatGPT loads in 2 seconds. And 2 seconds is faster than confusion is comfortable. So the map never begins. And ChatGPT answers a question you hadn't fully formed yet. Here's what the cost looks like over time.
It's not that you get worse answers. ChatGPT's answers are usually fine. It's that you stop building a map of where your thinking breaks down. Every field, every kind of problem has specific places where most people get stuck. And the people who get good at something, really good, know exactly where those places are for them. Not because someone told them, because they've been stuck there enough times to recognize it. That's what gets skipped. When ChatGPT answers before you have time to feel the confusion, you never find out where your stuck places are. You get the answer, but you don't get the self-knowledge that comes from hitting the wall first. And that self-knowledge,
knowing where you tend to stop, where your assumptions hide, where your thinking needs the most work. That's what separates someone who gets good at something from someone who just gets answers.
If this feels familiar so far, not as information, but as something you've been dealing with, we keep a growing collection of prompts, tools, and simple frameworks designed to help you think more clearly, start more easily, and work better in this environment. We add to it over time. Nothing overwhelming, just practical resources you can return to when you need them. If you want access, you will find it in the description. Now, let's continue.
Here's what's still available. The confusion is still there. Every time you face a problem, there's a moment, usually just a few seconds, before you reach for anything. That moment is where the map starts. Not by solving, not by having the answer, just by sitting long enough to feel where it gets hard, where you're not sure, where you're assuming something you haven't tested, where the question gets murky. That's readiness. Not knowing the answer, knowing the shape of what you don't know. And ChatGPT is actually better at helping you through that shape when you've had a chance to feel it first. Now, it has something to respond to. When you give it nothing, when you open it before the confusion lands, it fills the space. But when you give it your confusion, it has something real to work with. And so do you.
the next time you open ChatGPT, has your question formed yet?
The problem isn't that ChatGPT answers fast. That speed is useful. The problem is when speed arrives before your own thinking has had time to begin, before the question has taken shape, before the confusion has shown you where the real difficulty is, before you've had a chance to notice what you actually don't know. Because that moment before the answer isn't empty time. It's where your thinking starts. And if you skip it often enough, you don't just get faster. You get less familiar with the part of yourself that used to begin. So use the tool, but don't let it enter so early that it becomes the first thing that understands the problem. Because once ChatGPT gives you an answer, another problem begins. It may sound clear, it may sound confident, it may even sound right. And sometimes, that's exactly why it's harder to see when it isn't. That's where this goes next.
If you made it this far, it means this topic matters to you. In the next video, we continue building on this with clearer understanding, practical perspective, and ideas you can actually use. Following the channel really helps us keep developing content like this and adding more resources over time. The next video continues from here. You can watch it now.